Gentlemen, this is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Tuesday, the 22nd day of October, year of our Lord 2019, welcome to the John Moore Show. We begin our shows with something that, if Hussein Obama is president, he certainly would not put his hand on his heart when everybody else says the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Got a special alert on Steve Quayle's website. Steve has some excellent sources. This source is saying that beginning tomorrow, that would be Wednesday, the 23rd day of October, that Pacific Gas and Electric may very well cut the power again to Northern California. So if you or somebody you know lives in Northern California, you need to be aware of that and make appropriate preparations. That would be a smart thing to do. Prep tip of the day, make sure you've got enough water filters for your entire team. You may have a Berkey water filter that serves you and your family right now, maybe 4 people or 5 people. But if you have 12 or 14 or 15 people, that one Berkey will not be enough. You're going to need at least 2 of the big Imperial Berkeys, minimum, and extra filters, and several thousand paper coffee filters. You need to, any water coming from an open source needs to be pre-filtered first. It'll help preserve the length of the Berkey water filters, how long they last. We're going to have open lines this first hour. The second hour, we'll have Leon Green with us. I've been posting Mike Adams articles as I get to them and run across them. The current one was just posted yesterday. Let's go to that here at Natural News. He published this Sunday, the 20th of October, 3 days ago. The title of it is, and here's an advertisement popped up, Antifa puppet masters to engineer patriot slaughter of leftists to spark violent uprising against conservatives. This activity is not happening only in the United States. South America is in flames. Parts of South America are in flames, I should say. Chile, other countries, Ecuador. The communists are on the move. They recognize what I recognize, and many of you, because we have a very smart, very well-read audience here on the John Moore Radio Show. People, that men and women that actually do read books, which is extraordinary these days. That when Donald Trump is reelected, it's over. As far as them peaceably, them being the socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims, them peaceably winning at the ballot box and taking over to create their communist, socialist nirvana, they know it's over. So they're already putting Plan B into effect, and that's what's happening in South America right now. That's what's coming here. There is extreme violence in Chile right now. There's been protests in Ecuador. There's been civil disorder in other countries in South America. All of it, in my opinion, based on the information I've seen, funded by George Soros and his friends. When Donald Trump is reelected, and he is motivating his base, he's a one-time phenomenon. There's never going to be another Donald Trump. That's not going to happen. Mike Pence can't do what Donald Trump does. Mike Pence cannot fill up and won't fill up the stadiums and with as many, again, more people outside watching big screens because they can't get in the door. Mike Pence can't do that. I don't know of any Republican that can do that other than Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is motivating his base. He will win by a landslide. It will be a massive landslide. And he will appoint at least 1, possibly 2 Supreme Court justices, more than 100 federal court justices. And that translates into the opposition loses. Even if they get back in the White House 4 years later. They can't change the Supreme Court. That's not going to happen. It won't be allowed to happen. They can't change all these federal judge appointments. That won't happen either. They're finished. I was at the last night. I am the Republican committeeman from Osage Township here in Crawford County. We had our monthly meeting of the Crawford County Republican Central Committee, and one of the things we discussed was voter registration. It is critical. It is absolutely critical. This is not optional. That you talk to your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers who are conservatives, whether or not they vote Republican or declare themselves as Republican is not the issue. If they are conservatives, if they're pro-life, pro First Amendment, pro Second Amendment, pro Constitution, that you encourage these conservatives to register to vote so that they can vote. If they're not registered, they can't vote. It's pitiful, the percentage of Americans that take the time to register to vote and actually get out and vote. Now, these last 20 plus years, they've had motor voter registration and different ways to encourage people to register to vote, which has had some success. It's mostly targeting people who aren't motivated to go to the courthouse and register on their own. They have to make it so handy that they can't avoid it. Conservatives, on the other hand, typically will take the time, take an hour off from work, go to the courthouse or the appointed place, and register to vote. But many don't even do that. Many conservatives don't do that. Many liberals don't do that. And young people, people under 30, it's very small percentage of them that are registered to vote and actually do vote. So we have some time. We have less than a year. The cutoff date, I believe I was told last night, is October 3rd to vote in the general election. They should be registered to vote well before then so they can vote in local and state elections as well. There's primaries coming up in city and county elections, all of which we need to elect Constitution-supporting conservatives to those positions, which can't be done. You can't vote for these people unless you're registered to vote. You're going to hear excuses. Oh, it doesn't matter. My vote doesn't matter. It's all corrupt. You'll hear all these excuses. Oh, I don't care. Well, care. Give a darn. Wake up and smell the coffee. This is your country, ladies and gentlemen. And the road it's going down, if we don't attend to business, will not have good consequences. It simply won't. We're already waking up in a country that I barely recognize. Who would have thought that the Boy Scouts of America would invite homosexual men to be Boy Scout leaders? Men who are sexually attracted to other men, going out on weekends in the woods with handsome young men? What's wrong with that picture? That we would have girls in the Boy Scouts. Attractive young women, handsome young men going out in the woods for the weekend. What can possibly go wrong with that? Men competing in women's sports, demanding that they be allowed and compete in women's sports. In the meantime, these young women at the high school level, for example, they work for years to achieve athletic performance that would allow them to get a college scholarship in their chosen athletic field, only to be beaten by a boy in the same sport, dashing their hopes of winning that college scholarship for athletics and changing their lives in not very good ways. Who would have thought? Now, a boy who believes he's a girl is suffering mental illness. A man who believes he's a woman is suffering mental illness. A woman who believes she's a man is suffering mental illness. Granted, they have rights. Of course they have rights. They have a right to live. They have a right to have housing. They have a right to seek employment. They don't have a right to be hired. I don't see how we can compel employers to hire mentally ill people, but we've already got to that point, haven't we? They don't have a right. A man does not have a right to go into the girls' locker room at the public swimming pool. A woman does not have a right to go into the men's locker room at the public swimming pool. That right does not exist. We don't accommodate mentally ill people to that extent, although that's what's happening, isn't it? That's precisely what's happening. All in the name of equality. All in the name of equality. All in the name of not wanting to offend. I was talking to somebody yesterday. Maybe when Donald Trump starts his second term, we can go back to calling Christmas break at these public schools Christmas break instead of winter break. Wouldn't that be special? Would we offend some Muslims? I hope so. Would we offend some atheists? I hope so. We can go back to calling Easter break instead of spring break. Would that offend the Muslims? So what? Would that offend the atheists? So what? Despite Hussein Obama declaring that the United States of America is no longer a Christian nation, we are. We are still a majority of this country. If and when we're successful in cutting off illegal aliens from coming here, maybe we can reestablish our base as being an overwhelming majority. That remains to be seen. This republic is at great risk. Don't fool yourselves. When we have mainstream candidates running for president claiming they're going to have police officers go door to door to seize people's firearms, we're in very dangerous territory. Very dangerous. Now, I know out here where I live, in Crawford County, Missouri, and most of the 113 counties in Missouri, that's not going to happen. That simply will not happen. The local deputies aren't going to do it. The local police aren't going to do it. Highway Patrol is not going to do it. They may bring in some Russian troops or Chinese troops or from Pakistan or some other third world country. Yeah, they'll do it, as long as they're alive. Open season on blue helmets, sounds like to me. United Nations creates chaos wherever they go. They don't protect people. They stand by and watch people be slaughtered is all they do. The United Nations since day one has been a communist front organization. Has been, always will be, a communist front organization. And Donald Trump is doing what he can to cut off funding from our country to the United Nations and extricate ourselves from that. It needs to be done. We need to get out of there and ignore those people. Let them have their new world order. Leave us alone. I'm reading stories about mandatory classes in the public schools where American students, Christian American students, are compelled to write Islamic prayers with no exception. They're not allowed to be excused. They're not allowed to take a different task to be done instead of writing down the Islamic prayers. We don't compel students to write the Lord's Prayer in public schools. That may have been done decades ago. That would not be allowed to compel American students in public schools to write down the Lord's Prayer or say the Lord's Prayer. I don't see anything wrong with that, but that won't be done, not anytime in the near future anyway. But we do have American students in public schools being compelled to write down Islamic prayers. If they don't, they're punished. They're punished with a bad grade. I don't know what would happen if they said anything against Islam in the schoolroom. They'd probably be sent to the principal's office and disciplined if they said anything disparaging about Islam. Debbie Kidd, and I've been following Debbie Kidd's work for more than 20 years. Debbie Kidd wrote an excellent article recently, which she included some of the things that's going on with Islam in this country. They have a goal, and on my website we have a representative of Islam giving a little speech about what their goals are. Long-range process of making America Islam. This is from 30 years ago, 1989. There's this Muslim woman giving this speech. They know what they want. They have a goal. They have a plan to convert the United States of America to Islam. That's their goal. Of course, the general goal of the socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims is to destroy the country, destroy America, destroy our culture, destroy our economy. Whatever it takes, they will destroy it and recreate whatever is in its place, their socialist workers' paradise. Similar to East Germany, where they had to build a really big wall to keep people from escaping. Escaping the socialist workers' paradise. Those decades where Germany was split in two, East Germany and West Germany, was certainly an education for anybody who was paying attention. We got a break. Call numbers 800-313-9443.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
On Tuesday, the 22nd of October, we are going on a cruise. This cruise will take place. We're leaving Florida Sunday, the 9th of February, returning Saturday, the 16th. You've only got about 9 days now to make your reservation to reserve your cabin. Details are at my website at thelibertyman.com. And come the 1st of November, if you haven't reserved your cabin, well, it's too late. You won't be going on a cruise with us. Leon Green will be going with us, and it will be fun. We'll get together every day for lengthy discussions, the kind that can't possibly take place on radio. We'll get together for dinner every evening. There's 20 restaurants on this ship, by the way. This is a massive ship. It's a luxury resort on the water. Did I mention that Valentine's Day is in the middle of this for you romantic folks out there? If you don't have internet access, you want to get in on this cruise to go with us, give Betsy Murphy a call. She can still get you a nice color brochure in time to make your decision. Betsy's telephone number is 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. One of the things about living a lot of years is you've got the ability to actually recall firsthand the way things used to be and to have firsthand observations of the changes over the years. It's been said, and I think it was Franklin Roosevelt, if I can paraphrase it, nothing of any major consequence happens by accident. And that's true of societal changes, economy changes, wars, peace, the major things, good times, depression times. These major events are all contrived. The changes in our society are not spontaneous events. The changes in fashion, the changes in beliefs, the changes in music, changes in wants, needs, desires. These things are largely manipulated by people who have an agenda. Maybe it's just making money. The pharmaceutical industry is a good example of an industry whose goal is to make money as opposed to have a healthy population. When you spend more money per person than any country on the planet, which we do in the United States of America, more money per person on health care, alleged health care, than any country on the planet. Why is it there's about 30 countries that have a longer lifespan? Something's really broken here. Something's terribly broken when that is in fact the case. And I believe it's this year, 2019, is, I'm pretty sure, the first year that people will have a shorter life expectancy than they did the year before. And it will continue to go down due to a lot of factors, but one of the major factors that's caused this to happen, of course, is drug overdoses. We're losing more people per day to drug overdoses than were killed on the battlefield in Vietnam, and the worst part of the Vietnam War back in 1968 when I was there. More fatalities per day due to drug overdoses than during the worst part of the Vietnam War. That's where we are. That's reality. I was talking to the assistant coroner last night of Crawford County about fentanyl and how dangerous this stuff is. You don't even have to ingest it. All you need to do is get it on your skin. It can kill you. Incredibly toxic. Of course, his job is to deal with people who've died from everything you can imagine: automobile accidents, cancer, gunshot wounds, overdoses. And I told him, I said, when I talk to a young man or a young woman who's thinking about becoming a police officer, I told them the following: these days, any human body fluid can kill you. Just coming into contact with any human body fluid can kill you. That's the current reality. That's how dangerous this world has become. We have plenty of things to be concerned about that are right now in our face. The socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims, they will cause civil disorder. I'm absolutely convinced of it. From my private sources I talk to, people connected to the government, people connected to Department of Homeland Security, people connected to FEMA. That's what they're telling me. The timeline that we're concerned about is really ramps up following the November election, 12 months away. Will things happen between now and then? Almost without a doubt, things will happen. Plenty of things are at risk. Yellowstone's at risk of exploding, the Yellowstone supervolcano, the Cascadia volcanoes, the San Andreas, the New Madrid. There's plenty of things to be concerned about. Here's our bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 22nd day of October. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Whenever I meet people, they say, I tell my radio talk show hosts, well, what station, John? And I have to educate them about the current state of listening to the radio. Everything's changed. I let them know that we have all these different ways to listen to my radio show. I mentioned the time I'm on. They say, I'm working. I said, well, it doesn't matter anymore. We have archives. You can listen to my show anytime you want. There's Republic Broadcasting archives. I have my own YouTube archives. We're working on setting up other archives as well. You can listen on satellite. You can listen on the telephone. You can listen on the internet, of course. It's just amazing, all the different ways that you can listen to Republic Broadcasting and the John Moore Radio Show. Also, my website under products. If you might find things you don't know exist under Amazon products. Despite Amazon being rather anti-gun, they have literally hundreds of tactical products there that would be good in a tactical situation where you're defending life and liberty, property. And I've got quite a few of them listed there under Amazon products. You may want to check those out. You may find things you don't know even exist. That's always kind of fun. One last thing. If you have arthritis pain, many of you do, and you're not using an energy cleaner, if you did, your arthritis pain would either be gone away or dramatically reduced. Get yourself an energy cleaner. That's what you need. You need an energy cleaner to help with that arthritis pain. Joint pain, back pain, same thing. Many of you have issues with sleep. I know you do. That's just endemic in this country. The energy cleaner will help you sleep like a small child every night like I do. That's pretty neat. That's wonderful. $285 shipping included, American zip codes. Yes, I do offer from me to you personally a 90-day money-back guarantee. So check out the energy cleaner, the mattress pads that go with it. You can place your order right there at my website using PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. You can call my toll-free order line 24 hours a day. It's 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. You got a question or comment, give us a call at Republic Broadcasting at 800-313-9443. We've got a couple of callers on hold. First, we go to Ken in Louisiana. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, John. How you doing?
Really good, sir.
Hey, what to the subject you were talking about with Trump and stuff. There was a fella all day yesterday called in on Republic Broadcasting, and he kept asking the question, what's going to happen, what's going to go on, and he talked to John Stettmiller's show. And last night, James Kelso said it best, and I would advise everybody to go listen to what he said last night on the archives, because I can't give it no justice. But it is just what you're talking about, how Trump has got so many people following him that maybe, I don't know how to say this correctly, but Trump is building a coalition that we can defeat this without pulling out our guns and shooting people, if we will listen and follow and kind of go along with that. I'm not saying it good, but I think you get the gist of it. And I would advise everybody to listen to what James said last night, because that man can be silly, but he nailed it last night. And I want to go to your military moving their equipment around. I was at a truck stop this last weekend, and I was talking to a guy that had a piece of equipment on his trailer, and he said he'd been moving that equipment for 30 years. This is an experience that's what he does for a living, commercially. He says, I have never moved so much equipment and been as busy as we have been the last year. And I asked him, have you been moving any UN? He goes, I haven't personally, but some of my friends have moved a lot of it up into New Mexico. He named the base. I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. But it's into New Mexico. And he said that basically all the equipment's moving all around. He goes, it's not just going to the coast to be shipped out. He says it's just being shuffled all around. Did you
talk about United Nations equipment at all?
Yes, that he said some of his friends have moved United Nations equipment into New Mexico.
Into New Mexico, okay.
Into New Mexico.
Well, that's just confirmation of what we already heard. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to hold up your show, but I just wanted to talk on the subject. I'd like everybody to listen to what James said last night. He nailed it. He couldn't
really
do any better. Thank you.
Thank you for the call, Ken. Well, that's just confirmation. It was week before last. My friend Billy Bob, the truck driver, he confirmed live on the air that he had seen United Nations armored vehicles and thin-skinned vehicles on trains going in the same general direction towards New Mexico. So that's just independent confirmation of what we've already heard. We've got our next caller, Jerry in Texas. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, John. That's interesting on the movement of the UN vehicles. I read an article. That wasn't what I called in for, but here a little blurb that a lot of the left, if you will, the Democrats will vote Republican or third party if Bernie Sanders gets nominated, and possibly Elizabeth Warren, which I didn't read the whole thing. It wasn't. I couldn't quite follow it, but that's something that might be an eye opener right there for a lot of people. I don't know. I don't know if it'd be enough or not, but something that...
Is Sanders still a candidate? Did he withdraw? Is Sanders still a candidate with his heart condition and everything? Do you know?
Yes. To my understanding, he is. I've been trying to follow that he's back on the campaign trail, best I can tell.
Really? Okay. Well,
so, yeah. Who would vote for somebody that's a walking heart attack, I don't know. But, oh, by the way, I read an article about his daughter-in-law, 49 years old, that died of this endodoctrin, or however you say it, disease, and they suggested that this is, folks look it up, but they suggested that it was a result of all these vaccinations that for childhood diseases, that it compromises the immune system, which we've heard. But it was a rather interesting little article. If I can find that, I'll forward that to you if you're interested, John.
Yeah, that's news to me, but it doesn't surprise me. These vaccinations should be outlawed, quite frankly. But
but she is supposed to have had cancer throughout her whole body. By the time they diagnosed it as to what it was, she was dead. She died, within 3 days, 2 days?
I don't know the story, so I can't comment on it.
But that's kind of scary. But you're talking about the pharmaceutical industry and what have you. Folks, start looking at your food, especially when you go to ready-made or packaged, throw in the pan and cook, what all's in there. One of the most rampant diseases, I guess you call it disease nowadays, is diabetes. Type 2 diabetes. High fructose corn syrup. There's some interesting articles out there, and they're suggesting that's one of the major causes of diabetes. You become addicted to that. And just about everything you eat, all your soft drinks practically has high fructose corn syrup or sweetener, and so many of your other foods, and it becomes addictive. I know because I was addicted to soft drinks, Dr. Pepper, if you will, and I have come across some stuff talking about high fructose corn syrup. It's FTCS, I think is what the initials are, high fructose corn. Anyway, I figured out the acronym for it. But anyway, and I got to looking, and what is high fructose corn syrup? Well, it's corn syrup that they have added enzymes to partially digest it to make it into a sweetener. Same enzymes that's in your digestive system. That's enough to gross anybody out right there. But anyway, it's addictive. And I got away from soft drinks with high fructose corn syrup, started drinking pure cane sugar, and it wasn't very long that I quit soft drinks completely. I was addicted to the high fructose corn syrup in those soft drinks. I haven't had a soft drink probably in 2 years now. The thought of them is just almost stomach turning. But look at what they're feeding you. White flour, enriched bleached white flour. They take all the nutrients out of it, and so it'll have a long shelf life. And then they put artificial enrichments back in it.
Not only does it have a long shelf life, rats won't eat it. Rats are smart enough to know it's not food.
Well, what can we say? They're smarter than humans. But anyway, thanks for taking my call. I got to get back into my critters, but have a good day.
Thanks for the call, Jerry. Our next caller is Chance in West Virginia. Good morning, Chance.
Hello, John. John, I agree with a lot of things you say, but I think you're overlooking one thing. As far as these Muslims go, they're not breaking into this country. They're not chopping off border control heads and shooting them down. Somebody's letting them in, John.
Well, that's true.
We're overlooking the fact. We're overlooking the fact who's letting them in.
Well, the president's doing what he can to cut off the stream. It's difficult, but he's doing what he can.
Well, see, this is why I don't believe in this left-right paradigm anymore. I remember back in the 80s when I was checking all the voting records of all the congressmen and senators, I was shocked when I saw that supposed conservative Republicans would vote liberal. A certain portion would vote liberal, and I would say, what's going on here? They're supposed to be conservative.
That's right.
We have to go after the source. It's like here's an example. Let's say you have a kid on the playground who beats up all the other kids. You have to go to the source, which means you go to the parents. And they'll control the kid and make him stop. See, what we're doing in this country, is we're blaming these Muslims. Now, I'm no fan of Muslims, don't get me wrong. But somebody's letting them in here.
Right.
They wouldn't be here if they weren't allowed.
We've granted special status to Muslims to come in this country over and above Christians. And the president has made it much more difficult for people coming from Islamic countries to get into this country. So he's doing what he can. It's been uncontrolled for years before him. Go ahead.
John, the question does become then, who is granting them privilege? Those are the ones we have to look to go after and hold their feet to the fire.
Well, it's hard to do that with somebody who's out of office, but you're looking at Hussein Obama and people from his administration and previous administrations also.
I realize.
This goes back before Obama, of course.
Oh, I know that, but it's time to put the brakes on it now because it's out of hand, and we have to go to the source.
Well, I agree,
it's very
the
easy.
president's doing what he can to put the brakes on it. It's not an easy task, but he's doing what he can.
Well, he's got to try harder as far as I'm concerned, because there ain't going to be a country left soon if this keeps up.
I think you and I are in agreement. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, goodbye now.
Okay, thank you, Chance, for the call. The call number is 800-313-9443. Yes. I recall when the Civil War was going on in the former Yugoslavia. There were lots of people in Yugoslavia who would like to have come to the United States. We prohibited the Christians from coming here. Only the Muslims were allowed to come here from Yugoslavia. And I don't know how many, but I know some Christians pretended to be Muslims so that they could immigrate to the United States. There's any number of Christians living in Europe that would like to immigrate to the United States. It's very difficult for them to get here, to do it legally. I have a very dear friend and his wife. They were literally escaped Czechoslovakia, which no longer exists. There has not been a Czechoslovakia since about 1990, give or take a couple of years. We now have two countries that used to be Czechoslovakia. We got the Czech Republic and Slovakia. And regardless, they escaped Czechoslovakia. They told their friends and family they were going on vacation. They went to the country right next to Italy. I forget which country it is. They could get there legally. They crossed the international border into Italy at night, escaping communism, literally escaping communism. They spent a year in an Italian refugee camp to do all the paperwork, go through all the protocols to become legally go to the United States. It was not easy. The communist government put them on trial in absentia, convicted them in absentia of leaving the country without permission. That's a crime in a communist country. The socialist nirvana. And of course, they could really care less. They've been in this country now since the mid 1980s, since about 1985 or so. And they've raised a couple of beautiful children. They have a nice home that they have paid for, and a good business that they run, a family business, and they're quite happy to be here. On one hand, on the other, They were both shocked and disappointed to see how much socialism is already in place in this country once they got here. They were very disappointed to see that. And they do what they can. They're somewhat politically active, not as much now as they have been in the past, but somewhat politically active. Here's our break. We'll be right back.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. We will have an election in 12 months. That's going to happen. November 2020 is 12 months away. You need to be registered to vote. You need to get your conservative friends, associates, relatives, co-workers, people you go to church with, conservatives, registered to vote, and encourage them to get out and vote for the President of the United States. This is critical. It is not optional. Do not make assumptions. Just because this man fills up auditoriums with twice again as many people outside can't get in, don't make any assumptions about this. The socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims will use every trick they can to commit voter fraud, having people vote multiple times, manipulating ballots, stuffing ballot boxes, manipulating the computers to count the votes, whatever they can do. We need to have an overwhelming majority. That's what we need, an overwhelming majority that just smashes these people into the ground. The socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims. At the Republican Central Committee meeting last night, I was told that the Democrats at the county level are really getting fired up. I don't know what they're fired up about. They want to kill babies, take our guns, curtail free speech, have Islam in the public schools. They're fired up about something. Maybe that's the things they want to do. Give away free stuff. Yeah, hell, Medicare for all. Right. That's why people in Canada and England like to come to the United States, because they can actually get some health care that they need, as opposed to waiting until they die. I had a regular guest on my show from Canada. He died as a consequence of the Canadian health care. He died of an abscessed tooth. How can that happen in a modern first world country? How in the world can that happen, dying of an abscessed tooth? But he did. Great guy. Very knowledgeable about living in the Arctic. That's what he talked about when he came on my show. If you like the Postal Service, you'll like universal health care. Yeah, standing in line, waiting to buy a stamp. Yeah, if you like the Postal Service, you'll like universal health care. They're fired up. These Democrats are fired up. They're convinced they're going to win this next election. They're going to win a lot of elections. They're convinced of that. Now, in my county, we do not have a single Democratic office holder, and I don't anticipate we will for some time in the future. That's just not going to happen in Crawford County, Missouri. I don't know about your county. I just know about my county. No assumptions. No assumptions. the George Soros-funded Antifa, the George Soros-funded protesters. Planned Parenthood is donating $45 million to defeat this president. They can raise money. Don't fool yourselves. They can raise tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we need to outraise them on that too. It's been said that money is the mother's milk of political activity, and it is. In the modern age, of course it is. So we have a top of the hour break. We'll be back with Leon Green. Stay tuned. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 22nd day of October. The prep tip of the day, I want to encourage all of you to make sure you got enough water filters for your entire team. About one Berkey filter for every 4 to 6 people would be about right. You're going to go through a lot of water, and you don't want to be short on pure drinking water. That would just not be a good thing. Of course, I am a Berkey water filter dealer, and you can get those at my website at thelibertyman.com. We were hoping that Leon would call in, but apparently he has not yet. I had some email exchanges with Leon already this morning, and he has not called in yet. Hopefully he will do so. So we'll go back to open lines here at Republic Broadcasting and continue with our discussion. All right. Ultimately, all the things we're talking about except for earth changes are going to be spiritual battles. Surviving during severe earth changes, of course, will be a spiritual battle of a different kind. We won't be battling against evil. It's earth changes are just that. They're earth changes. There's no right or wrong or evil or good about it. It's just the way it is. If Yellowstone pops its top, the New Madrid kicks off, the San Andreas kicks off. Our worst case scenario, we have a good-sized rock hit one of our oceans at 6 or 10 times the speed of sound, or heaven forbid we have a pole shift due to interaction with another planetary-sized object. That's inevitable. Also, don't know when, but it's happened many times in the past, and it's easily provable. Locked in stone, so to speak. Here's what I'm referring to. When liquid rock from a volcano cools off and turns back into solid rock, all the magnetic particles in that rock line up while it's still liquid. They line up with magnetic north, wherever magnetic north happens to be at that point in time, whether it's the 22nd day of October 2019 down there in Hawaii, where this happens on a daily basis, the lava flow, or whether it's a 10,000-year-old volcano or a 100,000-year-old volcano. That volcanic rock, those particles line up with magnetic north. So it's very possible, and scientists have done this, to determine where magnetic north was at different points in time by using their instruments to calculate where magnetic north was when that particular rock, liquid rock, became solid rock. So magnetic north has been in many places over the millennium, many different places. That's why if you dig through the permafrost there in Alaska, you find tropical plants, because magnetic north was a long way from Alaska at one point in time, a real long way from Alaska. But getting back to the original premise, spiritual war. There is evil in this world. I've seen evil firsthand. I have. So most of you have only read about evil, or maybe seen what was pretended was portrayed as evil in a movie or a documentary, but I've seen it firsthand, and it can take on very deceptive look about it. There was a 19-year-old woman that I interviewed in a double homicide. Just to see her on the street or in a restaurant or in the workplace, you would think this is an attractive young woman. She was, she had physical attributes of an attractive young woman. Appeared to be normal. But she was evil in a pair of shoes. That's how I describe her. Evil in a pair of shoes. I was part of the defense team defending her boyfriend, who actually pulled the trigger to murder her grandparents. This young woman had a baby out of wedlock. She was kicked out of her parents' home. Her grandparents graciously took her in, providing her with shelter, providing her with food, utilities, probably a small allowance to buy clothing and all the things that she needed for the baby. She convinced her boyfriend that if the two of them, would murder Grandma and Grandpa, that she would inherit all of Grandma and Grandpa's bank accounts, worldly possessions, the house, the car, everything. She convinced this young man of that. She provided the weapon. She instructed the young man how to set up the murder scene in the home, in the grandparents' home. So it was a nice little middle-class home in St. Charles, Missouri. This would have been, I think, 1979, 40 years ago. They had a basement, a finished basement, which had a two-car garage attached to it. The girlfriend staged the area where the boyfriend would hide behind a sofa, that when the grandparents walked through the finished basement after parking the car in the garage, that he would commence firing. So the grandparents arrived home. They parked their vehicle, I believe it was a Buick, in the garage, put the garage door down. Grandma came in first. Now, he had to get them both in the same room in order to accomplish this. So by the time Grandpa got in the door, Grandma was almost at the top of the steps. So Grandma was near the top of the steps going to the main part of the house when the young man began firing. I believe it was a lever-action rifle. And he shot her several times. And he shot Grandpa several times, murdering them both. They placed Grandma and Grandpa in black plastic trash bags. Placed Grandma and Grandpa in the trunk of the Buick. They loaded up the baby, packed some clothes, took Grandma and Grandpa's credit cards and the Buick, and took off for Florida from St. Charles, Missouri. Along the way, passing a cornfield in Illinois, they dropped off Grandma and Grandpa's bodies in a cornfield and proceeded to Florida to begin their new life together with Grandma and Grandpa's credit cards, Grandma and Grandpa's automobile, and looking forward to having a wonderful life together, occupying the home of the murdered grandparents. It took police about 72 hours to catch up with them and arrest them. That's how long it took, about 72 hours. Of course, this is 40 years ago. The internet did not exist. And that's how long it took. Not very long. The prosecuting attorney in St. Charles County did something I believe was very unethical. What he did was make a plea agreement to have this young woman suffer no jail time, no serious charges, in exchange for her testimony against her boyfriend who pulled the trigger on the grandparents. Now, granted, this boy committed murder. He murdered two people in cold blood. And of course he should spend the rest of his life in jail. That's a given. Of course he should. But for this young woman who planned the whole thing, there would have been no murder, no crime at all, if not for her and her evil mind and her evil intentions. To give her a free pass, that was wrong, wrong, wrong. And as I said earlier, I was looking at evil in a pair of shoes when I was looking at this woman. This will be a spiritual war. I just use this as an example of evil being out there. There is truly evil in this world. This woman was not mentally ill. She was not consuming drugs or alcohol. She was completely sane and completely sober when she arranged this double homicide. A caller and hold here at Glenn in Pennsylvania. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, John. I thought it was something I've been meaning to ask. And it's been a long time since I've heard anything on the air about that community, the prepper community down your way that was being built. It was, the sort of thing where you could get into a house of some sort for between like $30,000 or $50,000 or something like that.
Right. Right.
What was that called? And did it fill up, or whatever became of that?
The developer turned out to be engaged in activity he was not qualified to engage in. He's one of these guys that thought he knew everything, and he originally was going to bring me on to be his director of marketing. And looking in hindsight, he didn't want somebody with my experience, both legally and in construction, being anywhere around there, because he was doing things that were completely wrong. His actions ended up in the project being an absolute disaster, with the Missouri Attorney General taking over the whole project down there and attempting to salvage it and help these people out.
Oh my! So if there's a case where if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Because, it could have been.
The possibility existed if he'd known what he's doing. I'll just give you one. I don't want to dwell on this too long, but
right.
I was talking to an assistant attorney general and one of his investigators about a year ago, and I said, well, the first thing you do with a project like this is you get a 2-foot contour map. And they both looked at me with a deer in the, dog in the fan, a deer in the headlight stare. They didn't have a clue what a 2-foot contour map was, and neither did the developer.
Okay.
But
neither do I.
Before anything, you can't do anything else until you have a 2-foot contour map. You can't. And that wasn't done, and everything, and that was. A lot of things were critical, but that was one of the critical things that was not done on this project.
Oh, my. Okay. Well, I certainly don't know what a 2-foot contour map is, so I'll just defer to you.
Well, you're not taking people's money to build homes either, so you don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right, yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I was hoping rather that it had maybe filled up and been completed or something. But,
right.
But anyway, that's all I really have. Oh, I guess a political thing I could raise is, what do you think of this Pelosi taking a congressional delegation to Saudi Arabia?
Well, that's where the money is, and they're looking for money. That's what they're doing. They're looking for money.
You think? I think a lot of people are assuming she's trying to scuttle Trump's Mideast peace plan or something.
Well, ironically, Saudi Arabia and Israel are cooperating on this peace plan. And Saudi's going to do what's in Saudi's interest. And working with Israel on this peace plan is in their interest. And I don't see anything's going to change that, Glenn.
Oh, good. I hope not. But I mean, that's what all the squawk was about. When this ripple of squawk went through, the internet saying, "Oh no, she's going over there to scuttle the peace plan." Blah blah blah. But
she may attempt to, but the Saudis may politely listen to her. But they're going to do what's in their interest. What's in their interest is to have a peace plan that's workable and work with Israel to resolve the matter.
Right. Very good. All right, sir. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, Glenn. Thank you for the call, sir. The call number is 800-313-9443. There's been literally many thousands of books written about what happened from 1939 to 1945, which is called World War II. Many thousands, including hundreds taking into account what happened in the POW camps and in the internment camps, the concentration camps. Regardless, whether it was a POW camp or an internment concentration camp, we did find out the following. The men and women who had a strong spiritual foundation going into those prison environments were far more likely to survive it than the ones who did not. That's indisputable. And having the right attitude, having strong values and strong faith, that's what saved millions of lives in those very harsh conditions. Very harsh. Obviously, it didn't save everybody. I was just reading the other day about a German general who ordered 15 Americans captured behind lines in full uniform. They weren't spies or trying to conceal their identity. They were American soldiers that he ordered them executed, despite his own officers below him saying, "Sir, don't do that. You can't. It's a violation of Geneva Accords. You can't execute these American soldiers. They were in uniform doing their duty." He executed them anyway, and he was tried, convicted, and executed himself. This ultimately will be a spiritual battle. That's what it's going to come down to. Socialists, communists, Democrats, Muslims, they're either atheists or they're Muslim. That's who they are. They're atheists and Muslims. You can't want to kill babies and be anything other than an atheist or a Muslim, can you? I don't think so. Of course, Muslims don't want to kill Muslim babies. They want to kill Christian babies. How can anybody who claims to be a Christian support anything the Democratic Party does? The party that wants to murder babies. Literally murder babies. How can they? I don't know. I'm shocked when I meet people in my community who claim to be Democrats. Absolutely shocked. I thought these people were Christians. They had conservative values. My neighbors out here. I'm disappointed when I find that out. A lot of times it's a generational thing. I know my dear departed mother. She always she thought that Franklin Roosevelt was on the right-hand side of God. Here's a break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. I got an email from Leon Green. He's on the road and couldn't join us today, but he'll be back next week. And he'll be going with us on the cruise. He and I will be at a speaking engagement. Of course, I'll be the speaker. Leon will be in the audience. I'll have a speaking engagement Saturday, the 8th day of February in Orlando, and that'll be fun. Then we leave the following day for a one-week cruise on the Caribbean, the Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. It will be romantic if you choose to be. It will be fun for everybody. Romantic, yes. Valentine's Day is right in the middle of the cruise. Yeah, we got some beautiful photographs there. There's a couple standing on the balcony overlooking the ocean. Another couple having a little kiss there at sunset, and there's some couples dancing in one of the ballrooms, and another couple having a glass of wine on the balcony overlooking the ocean there, the Caribbean Ocean. It'll be fun. I've never been on a cruise before in my life. This will be a first time for me. I'm looking forward to it. Details at my website. You've got 9 days to make up your mind and reserve a cabin. And we have a cruise director you can call and get details. Betsy Murphy, our cruise director. Here's her telephone twice, slowly. 636-530-9502. I say again, 636-530-9502. 9 days to make your mind up and get your reservation. When I was in combat in Vietnam, I learned a lot about human nature, about individual personalities, who you can trust, who you can't trust in combat. I saw men that when the first shots were fired, they curl up into the fetal position, literally. The guy right next to me, first shot, he dropped his rifle, he curled up in the fetal position. Great guy, hard worker, family man. He was useless in combat. Our officers, our senior sergeants, they recognized, they could tell who the alpha male warriors were and who wasn't. That was one of their expertise. They recognized John Moore being an alpha male warrior, and I did things that would be reserved for an alpha male warrior to do. While the guys who would curl up into the fetal position with the first shot, we gave them things that they could do. Everybody had a job. I was a leader then, despite only being a corporal and an E4. I was the leader. I had a lot of respect for the men I worked with. I helped them to achieve their goals, helped them to be safe. Despite only being 20 years old and only being a corporal. That continues to this day. I didn't know that the term alpha male warrior was not part of my vocabulary back then. I was not aware of that terminology. I was certainly aware of who I was and what I was capable of doing and what I would do. When it comes to combat, you want to be surrounded by alpha male warriors if you can. Now, there's such thing as an alpha female warrior, and that there would be a mother with a child, typically. They'll do whatever it takes to protect that child. That's an alpha female warrior. And they should. That's the right thing to do. And you really, I know, out in the wild, in the wilderness, you don't want to get between bear cubs and their mama. You really don't want to put yourself in that position. It will not have a good ending. Our community, Crawford County, will pull together to take care of each other. That's what small communities do. We all know each other. I was talking to the sheriff last night about some matters, and he just reconfirmed what I already knew. We have a great sheriff here in Crawford County. I've known this young man, I guess, about 12 years or so, and watched him mature to become the leader that he's become. He's a former Marine, great guy. Very smart, very hardworking, very diligent, understands people, understands human nature, understands the laws and law enforcement. Most county sheriffs are like that. Now, Missouri, I believe we have 113 sheriffs. I might be wrong. I might be off by one or two, but I believe we have 113 sheriffs. I've been to some of the sheriffs' conventions, and they all get together, and ranging from men in their mid-30s to guys that old enough to be the father of the younger guys. Well up into their late 70s, even into their 80s. Men are still sheriffs in Missouri. That's not unusual. That's the way it is around the country. Not unusual at all. Most of these sheriffs understand their constitutional responsibility and their oath to the Constitution. Most of these sheriffs understand that they are the highest law enforcement official in the county, that the FBI can't come into their county without their consent. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives can't come into their county without their consent. The Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, can't come into their county without their consent. Neither can the Highway Patrol. They're it. They're it. The top law enforcement official in the county. Here's our bottom of the hour break. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcast. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday. It is Tuesday, the 22nd day of October. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. Top of my homepage, you see what looks like a Christmas gift, a red box with a gold ribbon on it. If you click on that, you'll be at Steve Hunt's landing site for Swiss America. This is Steve's passion. Steve loves helping people to achieve their economic goals. That's his passion. And Steve will help you achieve your economic goals financially. He will. And he has some wonderful, wonderful publications he will get to you at no charge. His contact information is right there. Let me click on that. I know some of you don't have internet access. You need a telephone number. Contact Steve by telephone, 800-630-1491. I say it again, 800-630-1491. I mention Energy Cleaner for a few minutes every hour. Keep reminding people that they don't have to suffer from arthritis pain. Keep reminding people they can, in fact, sleep as great as a small child every night like I do. This can be done. It does. It can be done. And all you need is an energy cleaner and a mattress pad to go with it. We had a gentleman from Orem, Utah, place an order during the show today. I'll be talking to him when the show is over about his order. $285 shipping included for the energy cleaner to American zip codes. The mattress pads do vary in price depending on which one you get. Everything's for sale right there at my website. We can do your homework. Read the patent application information. How this thing came into being is fascinating. It really is. And I do something your medical professional is highly unlikely to do. There's a medical doctor in Chicago, by the way, who has his patients buying energy cleaners. But I do something that almost no medical professional will do. I offer a 90-day money-back guarantee. I do. That's from me to you personally. Get the details at my website where you can place your order using PayPal. Why is PayPal so good? Why do I promote PayPal? Well, here's why it's so secure. You're not giving up your credit card information when you use PayPal to make a payment online. You can also send me a check. My address is there at my website. Or you can call my toll-free order line 24 hours a day, 800-592-9543. Don't try to call me. It's just an order line only, 800-592-9543. What's coming? Well, I can't tell you what's coming. I can tell you what the possibilities are. The question we get all the time is, myself, Professor McCanny, other people, when's it going to happen, John? About 4 or 5 years ago, I jokingly, flippantly started saying 3 p.m. tomorrow. I've debriefed more than 24 Navy veterans. They moved to the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks when they retired. They were in my pistol classes back when we were doing pistol classes before they made the Missouri a constitutional carry state. They don't dwell on a date. They don't need it. They don't care about a date when it's going to happen. We're talking about violent earth changes. That's why they moved to the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. My work includes debriefing these men and letting everybody know what I found out from talking to these men who were at the classified briefings in the U.S. Navy about violent climate change and violent earth changes. These men were in these briefings going back to 1985. I haven't debriefed personally any flag rank officers who were at the 1979 briefing. I may or may not ever get that opportunity. I did debrief a man who set up the briefing room in 1979 in New Orleans for the flag rank officers. Those are admirals, by the way, in case you don't know. Admirals and generals are flag rank officers. So these men attended these briefings. They were told that during their lifetimes, these oceans will come out of the basins, flood all coastal areas worldwide. And gentlemen, when it comes time to retire, you just might want to retire to the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks as a safe haven. So here's what they do. The typical military retiree is between 40 and 50 years old. So that's pretty young. So they retire from the Navy. They find their 5 or 10 or 20 acres of heaven here in the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. They buy that acreage, start a new life, start their hobby farm, start a new career. And 6 days a week, assuming they take off Sundays for worship, they're doing everything they can to get prepared for what's coming. Therefore, a date no longer has any relevance because that's their life. Their life is a life of preparedness. That's what they do every day, is work towards that goal of being independent. So when the day comes, they are in fact independent. They don't dwell on a date. They're not searching for a date. It's not an issue for them. The people for whom it's an issue is many of you out there who are living in an urban suburban area, living near the East Coast, the Gulf Coast, the West Coast. You're the ones who it's an issue for. That's why you're searching for a date. And here's what many of you believe. Oh, once John Moore gives me a date, then I'll find my 5 acres in the Ozarks, and then I'll quit my job and start a new life in the Ozarks. If you think that's a plan, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. That's a plan. That's a plan for disaster is all that is. Now, the hobby farm we have listed here on my website for sale, there's a contract pending on it. I'll know in a few weeks if the contract's going to go or not, and then once it's gone, it's gone. It's the only hobby farm in my zip code for sale that I'm aware of. A working hobby farm, ready to go. You don't need to do anything except back up the U-Haul van to the door and unload your stuff. That's pretty extraordinary. They're out there, but not many of them. They're out there, but not many. And this is the only one in my zip code. Now, if that's your plan, to find out when the date is that the violent earth changes will commence, you're wrong. As far as that goes, we're already seeing the precursors. When the Gulf Stream stopped June 12, 2010, that was the beginning right there. June 12, 2010. It'll be 10 years ago this coming June. That changed everything. There's a free download at my website. It's about 19 pages, a white paper, paid for with your tax dollars. Pentagon paid for this paper. Has a really catchy title. An abrupt climate change scenario and its implications for United States national security. Paper addresses what happens when the Gulf Stream stops. There's a Hollywood film that addresses it, and it's rather spectacular. Dennis Quaid is the star. The title of the film is The Day After Tomorrow. It was made during the presidential election campaign. So they got one candidate who looks just like Al Gore, and the other as a president, and the vice president looks like Dick Cheney. So they had both bases covered. It was brilliant the way they did that little part of it. And I tell people, we're living that film in slow motion. The film is a Hollywood production. Of course it is. And what happens there over a course of maybe 3 or 4 months is going to happen over a matter of years. Not 3 or 4 months, obviously. The paper I mentioned, An Abrupt Climate Change Scenario, what they talk about is drought. They talk about migration of millions of people to get away from the drought-affected areas. They talk about wars. They talk about famine. It may be the 19 scariest pages of nonfiction you'll ever read in your life, because it's true. The authors who wrote this paper, they interviewed scientists, they interviewed economists, they interviewed agriculture experts, experts on war, experts on economies, experts on international relations, to come to the conclusions that they came to. That's where we are. That's where we are. The Gulf Stream stopped June 12, 2010. Easily provable, easily verifiable. The United States Navy publishes a brand new map every 24 hours showing ocean surface temperatures. And you can see the Gulf Stream. There's still a Gulf Stream. It didn't go away. The Gulf Stream comes up the east coast of the United States, as it's done for many, many centuries. Given its name, by the way, by Benjamin Franklin. Gets to about Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, starts going east by northeast towards the British Isles. Before June 12, 2010, it went all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. After June 12, 2010, it stops a few hundred miles out, does a little loop-to-loop. That's the end of it. You can see this on the map. It's published every day at the U.S. Navy website. Now, I think the link is still working on my website to go and look at that daily map. There'll be a warning comes up, warning, don't go to this website. Your computer's going to explode. Don't worry about that. That's a common warning that for some reason, we don't know why, that various government websites put that out. Maybe they're trying to cut down on traffic to it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But it's not going to harm your computer. I've been using it for years. It will not harm your computer. Those who prepare in advance have a substantially higher chance of survival than those that do not. There will be a point, and the government's real good at delaying this point, at obfuscation. They're excellent at doing this. However, there will be a point where a sizable percentage of Americans figure out what we're talking about here, what I'm talking about. And they close their businesses, and they pack up their family, and they head for the Arkansas, Missouri Ozarks. When that happens, that's when everything falls apart, because many of these people will own businesses that employ 20 people, 40, 50, 100 people. Many business owners, because business owners tend to be very bright, very resourceful, and network with other bright, resourceful people. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday. He flies his Cessna 210 back and forth between Florida and North Carolina frequently. And he's not a qualified pilot yet. He's still a learner. And if he needs a pilot to go with him, he just pays the pilot $350 a day. No big deal, John. No big deal. $350 a day to have a pilot help him get back and forth between Florida and North Carolina. Once those kind of people that have businesses with dozens, if not 100 or more employees, once they figure this out, they just lock the doors and walk away, or they sell the business. Their family comes first. That's the tipping point. That's what the government's concerned about. They're not concerned about chaos. They're not concerned about people doing things that are crazy. They're concerned about the business owners shutting down their businesses and getting out of Dodge. That will shut down the economy, because that's half the jobs in this country is small business. Half the jobs in this country are small business. No, it won't be panic. It'll be mature, educated, rational men and women who own businesses saying, oh, I think we need to get out of here. We need to get to where it's safe. I need to keep my wife and my family safe. And I'm going to shut down my business and do that. That's what the government's concerned about. And they will be quite successful to delaying that until it's too late for almost anybody to do anything, quite frankly. They will. You can count on it. Even third world governments. I was watching what happened in 1975, in the spring of 1975 in Vietnam. Without a doubt, the Republic of Vietnam was a third world government. Of course it was. Even they were able to pull off the charade, the illusion that the South Vietnamese army could save the day up until the last 30 days. And then it was total chaos that last 30 days of the Republic of Vietnam. There was a Buddhist general who bought everybody probably 2 to 3 more weeks with his heroic. I don't know what happened to him. I hope he made it out of there okay. But he was the only Buddhist general in the entire South Vietnamese army, which all the flag rank officers were Catholic, of course. So this is your heads up. I don't get this message out very frequently. It gets to be redundant. This is radio. I can't put out the same message all the time. Of course not. I would lose three-quarters of my listeners who wants to listen to this stuff every day, or even once a month. Well, it's important to do it maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I think. I probably won't do this again before 2020. It's going to be 2020 in 10 weeks. But I need to get this message out occasionally because we always have new listeners, because it's important, because it needs to be out there. We have a growing number of neighbors here in my neighborhood that listen to my radio show and moved here from other parts of the country, and God bless them for doing so. They know the risk they're at. They did not do that solely on my word. The radio talk show host, the homicide detective. What do I know? No. They did their own independent research and reached their own independent conclusions, separate and apart from anything John Moore says or believes. And that's the right thing to do, especially when it comes to something that important. Our friend Vince Finelli, when they watched my DVD, Global Warming, What the Government's Been Telling You, the whole family watched it. He said, John, the whole family watched, with his adult children, of course. He said, John, the whole family watched that DVD in complete silence. When the DVD first came out, I had an attorney in California. He wrote me a note. He says, John, I've been trying to convince my wife of these matters for years. She wouldn't listen to me. Your DVD convinced her. I need to buy 5 more. That's my reality. I don't know what your reality is. Yeah, these political things come and go. But the earth changes, the violent earth changes, the disappearance of flying insects. That's a reality that is not going to go away. It's not going to change. Elections aren't going to change it. The communists, socialist Democrats, Muslims aren't going to change it. The Republicans aren't going to change it. And this has nothing to do with human activity, by the way. That's a fantasy meant to obfuscate, distract, and enrich people who want to get rich off people's ignorance. That's all that is. Human activity, if it has any effect on the climate at all, is a fraction of 1%, a tiny fraction of 1%, if that. If that. It's easily provable to not be the case. We got our last break here. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here on Tuesday, the 22nd of October. Tomorrow morning, first hour, we'll have Professor James McCanney with us. Jim and I go all over the map. He's such a brilliant man with so many interests and so many levels of expertise. Everything from making traditional longbows for shooting a bow and arrow to computer technology to astrophysics to mathematics, and what a guy. Second hour, my friend Jeff Nyquist. As I frequently say, he should have his own cubicle in the West Wing of the White House advising the Trump administration on international communism. There's very few men who understand international communism as comprehensively as Jeff Nyquist does. Thursday, we'll have some open lines, and we'll have Tom Berryhill talk for 24 minutes about the energy cleaner, get some updates. We do expect to have Steve Whitman with us in November to give us an update on him and his situation and how the energy cleaner saved his life. Second hour, Thursday, Steve Hunt will come on and give us updates. Steve is the John Moore Radio Show economic advisor. Friday, we'll have Tom Berryhill back the first hour to talk about emergency survival communications. Very critical, very important. Second hour, we hoping to have Dr. Lynn Wilbert with us, and he'll give us updates on health. Dr. Wilbert has conducted seminars all over the country. I'm not sure about international, but all over the United States, he's had training sessions to train other doctors in health. So that'll finish out our week. It's only 12 months till the election, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to keep emphasizing this. If you know conservatives who are not registered to vote, they won't necessarily tell you unless you ask, hey there, are you registered to vote? You know, if they're not, offer to give them a ride. Whatever it takes to get these folks registered to vote. When it comes time to vote, offer to give them a ride to the polling places. Maybe help with babysitting, or help them get an absentee ballot. Whatever it takes. It's grassroots, and both sides understand it. The group that does the most grassroots work motivates their base the best, gets the vote out. They're the ones that are going to win. I know it, and now you know it also. You may think, oh, I'm just one person. Well, there's tens of thousands of one persons listening to me right now, live into the archives. And these one persons add up. You talk to two people, they talk to 2 more people. That's how this works. It's networking, and it's getting the job done. It's a job that is not optional. A job that we have to work on and whatever it takes, volunteering at phone banks, volunteering at campaign offices, putting out yard signs, handing out literature, whatever it takes. That's what needs to happen. And this is going to be a team effort nationwide to get President Trump reelected. It is not optional. And conservative Republicans reelected. That's it for the day. Get medical supplies, drinks, plenty of essential oils.